right. Yeah, that one with the pictures.
Good morning. Good morning. What a beautiful and what a handsome crowd of young students. How is everybody? Good? Come on, I want to hear you. I don't like it. Come on, come on. If you don't make a lot of noise, that means you're dead. So come on, I want to hear you. How are you? Now I feel better. Now I feel like you're back at Clark School, in the classroom, ready to answer questions. Okay, it's wonderful to see you all. Thank you for coming. This part of the program is a little more serious, okay? First of all, how many of you know or knew her? Put your hands up. Okay, put your hands down. How many of you had her as your teacher? Wow, thank you, thank you. Well, yeah, right here. So, this is our beloved Doris Blevins. Doris came from the South. She came up to Clark School, and she worked at Clark School for 38 years. You know that she was married to Bill Blevins, later Dr. Bill Blevins. How many of you knew her husband? How many of you knew Bill Blevins? Right. Okay. Do you know how long Doris and Bill were married? Guess. 50, 52, more. 55, close, 58 years. They were married for 58 wonderful, wonderful years. How many children did they have? 3, right, good, good. I'm checking your memories. I'm checking my facts. They had 3 daughters, okay, and they were Mary Beth or Beth, and they were well, first it was Darla, then Mary Beth or Beth, we called her, and what was their last daughter's name? Kristen. Kristen, I heard Mrs. Larkin say Kristen. So they had 3 lovely daughters who were with Doris when she passed away. Doris passed away on July 21st of this year. And she passed away at home, surrounded by her family. And I just talked with Dr. Blevins yesterday. And he sounded good, sad, of course, and there's a big hole in his life, but he sends his regards. He said if he was feeling better, he would have come today, because he gets a lot of energy and a lot of love from all of you. And I know that that's true, because every time we have a homecoming, I feel younger. I don't look younger, but I feel younger because of you, because of all the positive energy that you give when you come back to visit. Anyway, Doris retired in the early 1990s from Clark, and she went back to Elizabeth City, in North Carolina. And when she was here, she lived on campus with Dr. Blevins. You remember their house, okay? And many of you probably went down there at Halloween. My children went down to their house at Halloween. Doris was always, always warm and welcoming. And one of my memories of her is her gracious and big smile. She was just a very warm person. She was always a lady. I always think of her as a lady, but not afraid to get her hands dirty. I don't mean that way, but she just had a style about her. Some adjectives that I wrote down that I always think of are that she was gracious, just a very gracious person. She was very warm. She was very caring. And she was always welcoming with a smile. She had high expectations. Many of you remember her from the classroom. She expected a lot, but it was always appropriate. She was kind. She wasn't mean. I don't think there was a mean bone in her body. She raised 3 wonderful young ladies who have families and they have grandchildren now. And church was a very important part of her life. And near the end of her life, she was very active in the Relay for Life for the American Cancer Society. Those of us who knew her miss her. The last time I saw her and her husband was at the reunion, which was back in, what was that, 2009? Was it 2012? Thank you. That's when I saw them. And she had gotten sick, but most importantly, she was surrounded by love. So we want to remember Doris because she was a key figure for 38 years in Clark's history. And so many of you remember her. And after I get talking about Mr. Moulton, after that, then we'll have a moment of silence for both Doris and for Dennis. So first, this will be a chance for any of you, if you would like to share briefly any memories that you want to share with everybody. Do you have any memories of Mrs. Blevins that you would like to share? If so, okay, please, would you stand up?
I remember she first, Mr. and Mrs. Blevins came.
I remember when Mr. and Mrs. Blevins came at the beginning and they were first teaching. And they were at Gateway Hall.
Supposed to be Jimmy Sweeney.
Oh, my class was supposed to be this 50-year class. That class with Jimmy Sweeney. That was Doris's first class as a teacher. I was really surprised. There's my husband and wife as teachers.
She's not in training, but she's at that class.
She was with our class, and that was her first class as a teacher. That was Gateway Hall, and I remember that. That was my whole class. Mrs. Blevins would say, like, come on, we need to do stuff, and Mr. Blevins was like, oh, be careful, you know, we want to be and a little bit careful about things, but Mrs. Blevins was like totally comfortable. I really miss her a lot.
Anybody else want to say something? Sure, Linda. Mrs. Larkin.
I remember Doris and Bill when they were in Rogers Hall, because when I first came to Clark School, and after my training year, I was in Rogers Hall with them, and they were in charge of the dormitory. So many of you probably don't remember that part. But at one point, Mr. Blevins got drafted. He was in the reserve, and then he got called to go into the service.
Yeah.
And Doris had to take over being in charge of Rogers Hall. And she was so nervous, but she got through it, and we had a good year. And Bill didn't stay too long in the service. He came back pretty soon, so that was a good memory.
So write a letter to the government, tell them what to say. We don't want him to go in.
Letters to the government saying we don't
Right,
want him.
yeah, well, maybe they listened to those letters, because he didn't stay a very long time, and he wasn't too far away.
Go ahead.
The red light was on before I went to die.
Boy, it brings back memories of.
Yeah, the red light's on, but the battery's low. It says it.
I will always remember Doris.
Yeah.
We brought our oldest son, Arthur, to the Clark School. And Doris told me that I was always welcome to visit at her house. So one day I decided to go ahead and visit her. And she offered me tea, and we had a wonderful chat. She was so supportive. She said, "Don't worry about your son. Everything's gonna be fine," at Clark School. And it really was moving for me.
Witchell?
Okay, is that better? I remember Bill Blevins and Doris. They weren't married yet at that time. They were both teaching at the North Carolina School for the Deaf. That's how they met? Yeah, before they came here. I just wanted to let everybody know that memory that I had.
They went back in with him.
So let me conclude the Doris portion by just saying, she was an extraordinary wife. She was an extraordinary mother. She was an extraordinary teacher. And she was an extraordinary person. And she was very devoted to each of those roles. Okay, now let's talk about Mr. Moulton.
No.
So how many of you had Mr. Moulton for some kind of teacher? Gym, swimming, driver ed? Wow, wow, thank you. Well, I saw many of you at his recent services, and he died on August the 1st of this year. And first, let me just say again, it was wonderful to see so many of you who stopped your schedules and who came to his services. I know that meant the world to his wife, Bee, and to his children. It will never be forgotten by his family. So thank all of you who could come. It was a great, great day. Dennis, after he retired a few years ago, He lived on Cape Cod with his wife. She still lives there in Centerville. Dennis taught at Clark. Who knows how many years he taught at Clark? How many years? 40, a little bit more. 41. He taught at Clark for 41 years. I have known him my entire time at Clark School. I came just the year before, so I have known Dennis that entire time, and in many ways he felt like a brother. And it seemed impossible that he could get sick and die, because look at him. Strong, healthy, a great phys ed teacher, a great swimming teacher. How many of you had driver education with Mr. Moulton? I know you are the worst drivers around.
We're the best drivers.
Honestly, I would email Mr. Moulton when he was sick, and he was really too sick to see many people, but I would email him, and one thing he never lost was his sense of humor. And I teased him about that very thing that I just said to you. I said, so Dennis, I know you used to teach driver education, and I know that the rates, the insurance rates for those students who you taught have gone up and up because they have poor driving records. Oh, he gave me a hard time back. He goes, what do you know, Bob? You don't know what you're talking about, etc., etc. He loved you guys, and I know you know that. He loved all the sports that he taught you. He loved being part of the Clark School community. As you know, he came as a swim coach, and then a gym teacher, and then he took over for Mr. Wilhelm, for Heine Wilhelm, or Whitey Wilhelm, and he became the athletic director. And also he continued as the swim coach because that's what he did at UMass, meaning he was an Olympic swimmer. And then as Clark School's population changed, then he worked part-time in the classroom. And his classroom was right across the hall from my classroom. And so I really got to know him well. His children grew up on campus, and my kids grew up on campus. So it really felt like a brother when he got sick and passed away. He was known affectionately as, what was his nickname? What did everybody call him? What did the students call him? Say it. Nice words, not bad words. Coach. Everybody called him Coach.
Big D? Big
Coach.
D?
Or Big D. Yep, Big D. I remember that one. But lots of people say Coach. 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 They wouldn't say Mr. Moulton. They would say Coach, because he was a great coach. It was so rare to see Mr. Moulton get angry when he was coaching. He was so patient. I would be upset watching the game. He was coaching the game, and he kept his cool. It's very impressive. Truly, it's very impressive. He coached soccer and basketball. He was married to be his wife. Do you know for how long? How long was he married? You want to guess?
Long time.
45 years. They were married 45 years. Who remembers the name of their children? Offer. Dennis, right? Dennis Jr., but Dennis.
Jam.
James?
Jimmy, James, and what was his daughter? Elizabeth. And she went through the training program. Elizabeth, we called her Liz, but she went through the training program. This is the thing that amazes me the most. When I stopped and I thought about Dennis's life, Mr. Moulton taught every student from first grade all the way up through what was upper school. But he taught every student. If they left early, he had already taught them because he had them in gym. And so he taught every student at Clark School for 41 years. That is really remarkable. And the fact that he could teach the littlest kids and be very effective with them, and teach the oldest teenagers, some of the rowdy John McEnany's and Peter Hayeses and so forth, and he was effective at all those levels, that says an awful lot about Dennis's ability. The thing that I think of most when I think of words that sort of describe him is good sportsmanship was always a key part of every game. I watched him take students, good athletes, I watched him take them out of a game and maybe lose some points because they were not a good sport. I mean, I saw that happen. You don't see that happen very often. They usually let that student stay in even though they're not behaving well because they're good and they're going to make more points. If they were a poor sport or they did something inappropriate, Dennis would bench them. Because what was more important? That they learn to be good sports. Winning is not the most important thing. And Dennis would have said that over and over. He wanted you to enjoy the sport, but he wanted you to be fair and good when you played. He had a great sense of humor, as I mentioned. And the other thing that I think of when I think of Dennis is that he was interested in teaching the whole child, not just science or math or sports or swimming, but he wanted every student that he worked with to become a good citizen. And I respect him greatly for that. And I personally miss him, and I know many, many of you do as well. So we have a couple more minutes if anybody wants to offer some comments. Anybody want to make some comments? Please, Christine. Oh, that's you.
I'm so sorry that I missed the memorial last August. I was out of state. But regarding Bob's comment about good sportsmanship, he's right. I played basketball. He was my coach. And if I wasn't a good sport, he would throw me out of the game. Right out of the game. And when that happened to me, I was like, what? I have to leave the game? You mean during the game? And that really, really had an effect on me. I learned that from him about how to be a good sport. So I'm so grateful that he taught me that, and I wanted to share that.
Rodney.
I must tell you something. Clark School was extremely fortunate. We were so lucky to have 85 years of excellent teaching and coaching from Mr. Wilhelm to Dennis Moulton. 85 years. 1933. 43 years of turnover. After that time, I went to Dennis Moulton, who worked for another 42 years. So 33, 42, that gives us 85 years. Thank you, Mr. Wilhelm. Dennis, thank you. So I took my road test in Northampton, and I failed because there was a woman walking. Now at that time there were no sidewalks, there were no curbs. She was just a walking, and you know, I thought I could bear left, take a left-hand turn. The police said, no way. Because accidentally, that woman would have touched the curb. And I thought, that cop's ridiculous. What are you talking about? I mean, that's way far away from where I am. I had to have at least 20 feet between the car and her. So I had to get my learner's permit before I was able to leave for Texas. Dennis Moulton made so much effort. He put in all the calls, trying to find the time available for me for a road test. There's nothing available. Hadley didn't have anything available. The only place I had an opening was in Chicopee. So, Dennis knew that Chicopee had many one-way streets. And he didn't want to tell me this before we left for Chicopee. He kept it to himself until we arrived at Chicopee Police Station.
He never called
Now,
me.
he never called me
Never
Dick.
called me.
He always called me Richard. Richard. Richard, I gotta let you know, in Chicopee, there are many one-way streets. And I'm like, oh no! I can't fail again before I leave for Texas. So, he drew out a map for me, and he's telling me which way I should go.
Wow.
So I got this big cop coming over to do my inspection. I was just nervous as could be because I wasn't familiar with the roads in Chicopee. I didn't know where I was going. So here I am driving on a one-way and cutting and curving and going this way and that. Dennis thought that I failed again. Oh my gosh, it was a long way for both of us. So Dennis goes into the police station, talks to the cop, and there I am, and they're talking back and forth, and oh my God, I was so nervous. Came out of the police station, and he looked so serious. You know the look. He's standing there like this. And he says, "Yeah, pass." I will never forget that. He was. Actually, that was one of my favorite memories of Dennis, was that driving.
But still, watch out for Dick when he's driving. Okay, I have time for one or two more comments. Winchell, and then Bruce. Winchell? My fault, Steve.
Here's a funny story for you. And this is about Dennis. There was a time he was working in the summer program. He was planning to teach the children about life through camping. And so he asked me if I would participate, if I'd join them on this trip. And I said, okay, why not? So we set up the tent, and they were old-fashioned tents. They called them pop tents. You know, there wasn't much to them. That was it. There's a little roof or maybe a side, and that was it. I mean, animals were able to get in there. There was no floor. There was no zipper. So we had all these little pup tents set up. And at night, Dennis was having a hard time sleeping. He kept hearing things out in the woods, various animals. He heard a skunk. Yeah, there was a skunk out there, and one time I was sleeping and had the pillow, you know, on the ground, of course. And I'm looking, and I see the skunk coming towards me with the tail raised up. I picked up the pillow, hid under that, and I heard a very soft voice. I was using a soft voice, blowing, trying to get the skunk to leave me alone. And at night, I mean, there were no lights on. I couldn't hear a darn thing. Sorry, that was Dennis who was hearing this. That skunk story happened with Dennis. I didn't hear one thing. He was the only hearing person there who was having trouble sleeping. The rest of us slept like logs. He'd hear two different noises. He heard two different things walking towards each other and clashing. And then he heard this screaming and a fight. He heard all these things. So the next morning, he looked beat. He was tired because he didn't sleep the whole night. He was standing guard on watch, seeing what other creatures were going to come. And he said, honest to goodness, there must have been 30 skunks all over where we were camping. Oh, really? I said. And then you know, this all happened to the students, but there was no smell. Luckily, nobody got sprayed. We were in good shape, but what an event. What an experience.
All right, we only have time for one more. Bruce, come on up. Oh, yeah, hello.
You know, I've been here, he was here for a long time, 32 years. I'm sure most of you remember the winter. You know, he'd walk around in his short sleeve t-shirt. You remember that? Even though it's freezing cold out there. Well, in my senior year, I was on the soccer captain. And, you know, we had a bad season. We weren't doing well. I was extremely frustrated with my soccer team. I mean, we were pulling in all these new students, and the team couldn't figure out what people's strengths were, what the positions were, and they wanted this, they wanted that. And there was one game we lost badly. I'm thinking 7-1. I mean, it's terrible. The score was just outrageous, 7-1, 70-1, whatever it was. And coach said it was up to us to figure out how we were going to move through the rest of the season. So I thought, you know, I mean, students, you know, the coach was upset. We all felt guilty. We were paranoid. We didn't know what to do. So one weekend, we all agreed we'd come together and really sit down and figure out how we were going to improve our soccer team. And so we were juggling positions, and okay, you want this one, you play this position, we'll try everybody else, try new positions. The next week, we got better and better and better. Our team took off because he didn't tell us what to do. He said it's not a one-man's team, it's a team. That's what team means. You work together. There are 11 men on the field. You must play together. You've got to negotiate and make sense and figure it out. But prior to that day to this day, I play softball, basketball, whatever it is, whatever the team is, I say, we're going to be the best team. He taught us how to do that. He taught us how to develop teamwork and work together. He was an incredible teacher. He had such a strong influence on our lives. Where would we be? Who would we be? I mean, we're going to be great men and women, great grandparents, thanks to him. And I wish he was here. You know, I was in Florida. I was coaching actually in a tournament. My heart was here during his memorial. My thoughts have been with him throughout the entire tournament. So.
Well, what we all have is also why we are here. We have memories, and we have wonderful memories of Mrs. Blevins and Mr. Moulton, plus all the memories of your time together, your time with other teachers and house parents and so forth at Clark School. That's what makes us a family. And Dennis and Doris were very important parts of the Clark School family. So let's take a minute and bow our heads and remember both Doris and Dennis for a minute of silence. Okay, thank you very much. Now, before we break for lunch, we have an announcement.
Hi, everyone. I didn't know Dennis Moulton, and I didn't know Mrs. Blevins. Dick and I, Bob and I were able to talk to Dr. Blevins yesterday, and as Bob mentioned to you, he wishes he were able to be here. He's got a little problem with his hip. I told him to go get it fixed. He's got that on the schedule, so hopefully he'll be back here next year and then joining us for the reunion in 2017. So I want to encourage you. I'm sure there are other memories that you have of both Doris and of Dennis, and there is a book back there. I know many of you have taken the time to sign it. If there's a memory that you have, happy, otherwise,
be shared. I know it'll mean a lot to the families, so I want to encourage you. The books are back there in the other room. We're going to break for lunch now, and we're going to come back down here for the big event, which Bob will lead us through for the live auction. The sale items and the silent auction will be closing at 2 o'clock. So I know a lot of you are interested in purchasing items. So we're gonna have someone up where you came in at the welcome table. That's where you'll also check out. So I encourage you to take a look, see if you wanna have your little piece of Clark to go home with you. And then get your credit cards ready, because there are some great items for the live auction. And that's it. The last thing I would say to you is, I know it's a little sticky in here, the temperature. Are we in agreement that it's kind of going cool and it's hot in here? So I'm gonna suggest that if you're someone that tends to get cold easily, come to this side of the room. And if you wanna be closer to the cooler, we're gonna open a couple of the windows just to get some fresh air in here while we're at lunch. So if you're colder, go over here. If you're warmer, be by the window, and then I think we'll all be more comfortable. So, you having a good day? Am I seeing Todd, Ted? All right, good. I think we got a great lunch for you, so I'm really glad that we're able to bring you all together. And really, you talk about the